Show me your hands! Stop! Stop! 573. Show me your hands! I got you.
Yeah, I will defend my brothers, I will defend the weak. I will pursue and fight evil so others may sleep. I am the sheepdog, protecting the night. Wolf hunters unite, bring it on. It's time to fight.
What's up, guys? Mike the Cop. In a situation out of Sacramento, California from March of 2018 in which Stephon Clark was fatally shot by officers has again jumped into the headlines because the district attorney has announced formally that no charges will be filed against the officers involved. And as we dive into this, let me be very, very clear up front that I am not glad that anyone lost their life. I am not gloating in any way, shape, or form that officers somehow had a perceived opportunity to use deadly force where they were hoping to do so. In fact, almost universally, officers regret ever having to be put into those situations in the first place. But I don't want to get too off topic with that specifically. Let me just say, and I hope this is sufficient for now, I join the DA who made this decision in saying this. Stephon Clark's death was a tragedy that has had a devastating impact on his family and their community. A young man lost his life, and many lives have been irreversibly changed. No decision or report will restore Stephon Clark's life. Real quick before we go any further, guys, the EDC Defense tool that I've shown on my EDC Defense videos in the past, it is back in stock on MikeTheCop.tv. So if that interests you, be sure to check that out. You will be hard-pressed to find a lot of the mainstream media outlets or even just common media outlets not inserting race or race baiting into this story. This is what caught my attention again, fresh on this story, when I saw a tweet in my feed from NPR that said this: "We no charges filed against two police officers who shot 22-year-old Stephon Clark, an unarmed black man, nearly a year ago," Sacramento County District Attorney Anne Marie Schubert has announced. And my response to this is, would you say no charges filed in the case of a black man committing crimes in his grandmother's neighborhood? What would be the sense of that? What does race have to do with the fact that someone was committing a crime and was being called in by their neighbors and found by the police? It would seem that that would be the racist thing to do, which would be to make a statement that was the inverse, which is that he was committing crimes because of his race. That sounds absurd, and it is just as absurd to me to use race in this way. And just in case you think I'm the one that is being sensitive about this or inserting race into this, I don't believe that I am. According to Vox, the family has filed a $20 million wrongful death civil suit in which they cite that racial profiling is what Stephon Clark was, at least in part, a victim of. As I revisit this case, then, it leads to some questions that I want to address. Number one, what, if anything, does race have to do with this case? Number two, what are the actual facts surrounding the incident itself, as a refresher? And as we look at those two things and put them together, did the DA, in my opinion, make the right call? First, which part about race is important or relevant in any way, shape, or form to this incident? My answer, as you can probably guess in this case, is absolutely none of it. The only thing about race that matters in this is the fact that it's being reinserted or was ever part of the discussion in the first place, and I'm going to explain why. But it's not surprising because this is a common thing that happens in this narrative. There's an anti-police narrative that exists, and it sells, and it's something that is a way to, we could talk about why that is, but I believe it's a way to retain relevance in the conversation when race doesn't play a part in it, because that helps you retain position and power in certain cases, both in the media and in politics and in positions of power. So, not going to take a deep dive there, but it's not shocking to me. In fact, we look and we see that immediately in the wake of the incident, there was agitation at community forums with race being a blatant factor inserted into it. And even the prince of race baiting himself, the Reverend Al Sharpton, eulogized Mr. Clark at his funeral. So these things aren't a surprise to me. They're probably not a surprise to a lot of you, but let's dig into why I truly don't believe that any of this situation supports the idea that race would be a relevant factor. Now, if it was a relevant factor, I would want to admit that. I want to recognize that if it were a factor. I do not believe it was in this case, and here's why. Number one, the 911 call audio explicitly, the caller that initially alerts the police to the situation is asked about race. Listen to what he said.
What is he, black, white, Hispanic, Asian?
He had a hoodie on. I couldn't tell, man.
What color hoodie?
It's black. He's black hoodie, and it looks like he has some kind of pants on, but they have like white stripes or white dots on them or something like that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
As you can see, the information that the officers had to go by, being relayed by 911 dispatchers, had nothing to do with race at all. Number two, unless thermal is a race, the police helicopter that picked up on the subject that would later be identified as Stephon Clark, he was not identified by race by the police helicopter. Why? Well, because it was nighttime and it was thermal imaging. Next, one of the officers involved in this situation was a person of color, is a person of color himself. And so it definitely at least causes a moment of pause as to why this would be considered racial profiling. But these facts don't seem to be stopping major outlets, common outlets where people go to get their news from, utilizing this common phrase, unarmed black man, as though race had anything to do with why the police were called or how they responded. Not to say that it could never have anything to do with that, but did it in this case? Let's take a look as we continue on at the facts surrounding the case. Again, the 911 call was made indicating that there was a subject who had been breaking windows on cars. We could presume that it was to see if there was anything of value in them, etc., possibly to steal them. We don't know that. The caller says he smashed my windows. He's done it to cars across the street, and now he's in the backyard of someone else. He's trying to get away. So this is someone who is caught in the act of committing crimes in this neighborhood. So that is the preface of what it is. So I will link the full 911 audio below. You can listen to that for yourself. Next, what happens is a helicopter pilot in the area picks up on the subject as he is hopping fences. And right before the recording begins, the helicopter pilot actually notifies officers on the ground that he appears to be breaking and entering into another residence. They described him doing so, and what was recovered at that house in the backyard was a piece of concrete and a bar of some kind. So there was someone sitting in their living room that said, hey, this guy smashed my back door open, my glass door, and is trying to get into the house. So this is also an indisputable fact that he attempted to get into a house. As soon as they saw that, the recording begins. That information was verbally relayed to the officers on the ground, and if I'm making a mistake in articulating the exact nature of that, then I own that. But the bottom line is he's trying to get into someone else's home, or at least just causing damage to the property. Why he's running and all of a sudden would just smash somebody else's stuff, I don't know. But that's what happens. The recording begins on the helicopter camera, and they follow Mr. Clark all the way into what is later known to be his grandma's backyard. There is full body cam footage. It is graphic in parts, but we'll see that they issued lawful commands as they discover the helicopter pilot leads them to exactly where Mr. Clark is. They call out that he's looking into this other van, etc. He's in this yard. They make contact with him, and then here's what we see.
Hey, show me your hands! Stop! Why shouldn't stop?
It is important to note that in a day and age where we have the advantage of complete hindsight, we can take days, weeks, and in this case even almost a year to analyze a situation. Those officers had mere moments to try to analyze what's going on and how they're going to respond given all of the situation from their perspective. That's super important. That's how use of force is understood in the courts of law, is not by our 2020 hindsight, but by the reasonableness of the use of force in that moment with the information and perception of the officers in that time. And just because they're police officers doesn't mean that they lose the right to defend themselves or others. So really, really important point to mention. But what happens is, and I'm going to give you the still shot here, is there's clear evidence from the aerial footage and the thermal camera and the body cam footage that he wasn't running away. Mr. Clark was not just running away in fear from unknown forces showing up, or he has a long-standing fear of the police, so he was running away. No, he turned back toward the officers and pointed this object, which turns out to be a cell phone, not a firearm, not something that you can necessarily distinguish in a split second in the dark with a flashlight either, especially given the circumstances of the fact that he had already run and already continued to do damaging acts or appear to be willing to take drastic measures to escape. Why did Mr. Clark engage the officers the way that he did, both in running away and in turning to re-engage them? Well, we may not know. There's one aspect of the toxicology report that came out that showed that he had alcohol, Xanax, codeine, marijuana, hydrocodone, and a metabolite of cocaine in his system. That's all publicly available now from the autopsy report. But we also have a cell phone text note, like a note that he had left, and text messages that he had with someone talking about the fact that he was afraid to go back to jail. You see, he had just recently been known to be arrestable for the offense of domestic violence when he had caused harm to a female, and that wasn't his first instance of doing so. He had actually served time in jail before for domestic violence, as well as having pled no contest to robbery in the past. So this isn't someone who had done something in the past, kind of gotten over it, and had a life that was redeemed. This was someone who just recently, before engaging the police, was expressing that he was fearful for going back to jail, and he had been deemed arrestable in a domestic violence situation in which the police arrived and this female had injuries to herself. So these factors may have all played a part in his decision, but we may ultimately never know the real significant reason of why he would want to engage the police this way, knowing what that possible outcome would be. A lot of people may say, well, Mike, of course you're going to come off and justify it. Of course you're justifying the officers. But I think if you think that, you've pegged me wrong in that I've publicly criticized officers on this, on all of my social media networks that I appear on. I have done so and will continue to do so where it is justifiable to do so. But in this case, I don't believe it is, based on the fact. Now, given the questions we've asked so far, what, if anything, does race have to do with this? What are the facts of the situation? Did the district attorney, in my opinion, get this right? I believe that it does. Now, here is something that I want to reinforce that is from the district attorney herself. The law recognizes an inherent right to use deadly force to protect oneself or others from death or great bodily harm. This fundamental legal principle is known as the right of self-defense. A police officer does not lose this fundamental right by virtue of becoming a police officer, nor do police officers have to stop or retreat simply because the subject or suspect resists. They are entitled to the same protections of the law as every other citizen. The law of self-defense is well established and clear. So I don't see how anybody looking objectively at this situation could come to any conclusion other than the fact that the DA got it right. I mean, put yourself in the position of someone who is a victim of Stephon Clark, potentially, that he would be breaking into your personal property. He would be attempting to gain entry into your home where you and your family are situated, and should feel safe, should know that the police are going to try to protect you when you call them. What should they have done? Just stop trying to find him once the helicopter told them where this subject was at? Just walk away and send him a note later, maybe email, knock on the door during daylight hours? What do you expect to happen as a citizen where the police are sworn to protect you in your community? And uphold the law in your community. So I think when you really take a step back and look at this objectively, we see that this isn't an issue of race. And where race would be inserted in this, it wouldn't be fair to say, see, look at what happened. A black man committed crimes. What else would we expect? That sounds completely asinine to say. And it is, just as much as it is to say, look at these officers who shot an unarmed black man, because the relevance of that to the crime at hand doesn't exist. I just don't see anywhere looking at the facts that are so readily available. All of my sources I will link down below in the description for everyone to look at. Could come to any other conclusion than that this was the right decision in this case. What are your thoughts? Follow-up questions, concerns, whatever. Drop them below in the comments. Wherever you're watching this video, make sure you follow along and subscribe to whatever platform we're on. Share this video with your friends, etc., etc., etc. Thank you very much,